There is a 7-minute window every evening that most people with irritable bowel syndrome are wasting completely. Not because they are doing anything wrong, because no one told them the window exists. If you have IBS and you go to bed with cramping, bloating, or that tight pressure in your lower abdomen that makes you wake up at 2 in the morning and spend the next 40 minutes in the bathroom clo, I need you to hear this clearly. That pattern is not random.
It is not just stress. And it is not something you have to accept as a permanent part of your life.
What is happening in your gut during those final hours before sleep is a process called migrating motor complex cycling. And the bacteria in your colon have a direct vote in how that process runs. When the wrong species dominate that vote and I am going to show you exactly which species those are treating, the result is exactly what you have been experiencing. Cramping, urgency, and a night that never fully lets you rest. Here is what I have spent 16 years watching in clinical practice. The people who resolve nighttime IBS symptoms, not manage, resolve, almost universally do 3 things in a specific 7-minute sequence, between 7 and 9 in the evening. They did not invent those 3 things. The research invented them. These patients just happened to find the research, or they found someone who read it. Tonight, you are going to be that someone. I'm going to walk you through the exact mechanism. I am going to show you 3 composite patient cases where this protocol was the turning point. And then I am going to give you the 7-minute sequence step by step, so that starting tomorrow morning, you wake up having slept through the night. Stay with me, because what I am about to show you in the mechanism section is where this gets specific in a way most gastroenterology content never reaches. Here is exactly what this video delivers. 1. I am going to explain what the migrating motor complex is, why it matters for IBS, and why nobody in a standard 15-minute gastroenterology appointment ever mentions it. 2. I am going to show you the 2 bacterial species that are most consistently elevated in people who experience nighttime IBS cramping, and what those species are actually producing in your colon after 8 in the evening. 3. I am going to walk you through 3 real clinical patterns, composite patients whose nighttime symptoms followed a predictable arc until one intervention changed the trajectory. 4. I am going to give you the 7-minute evening protocol ties. 3 steps, each taking under 3 minutes, sequenced in a specific order for a specific reason. 5. I am going to tell you the one food that most people with IBS eat after 7 in the evening that is directly feeding the bacteria driving their symptoms. And it is not the food you think it is. Every one of those 5 things is in this video. Nothing is held behind a paywall. Let's go. Who have been told their IBS is just anxiety, or just diet, or just something they need to learn to live with. My work is about finding the mechanism underneath that dismissal beyond, and giving patients something they can actually do with it. Let me tell you about a patient. I will call her Margaret. She was 53 years old, a high school administrator from the Pacific Northwest. And she had been living with IBS-M, the mixed subtype, alternating constipation and diarrhea, for 11 years. Margaret was not passive about her condition. She had done the low FODMAP diet twice. She had tried 2 different antispasmodic medications. She had worked with a therapist specifically on gut-directed hypnotherapy, which helped her daytime symptoms meaningfully. But every night, between 10 in the evening and 2 in the morning, the same sequence played out. Cramping in the lower left quadrant, urgency, incomplete evacuation, and then an inability to fall back asleep because the pressure never fully resolved. She described it the same way every time she talked to me, like something was churning inside her that could not find a resting position. When I asked her what she typically did between 7 and 10 in the evening, the picture became very clear very quickly. She ate dinner late, usually around 8. The meal was healthy by any reasonable standard. Grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, a small portion of whole grains. She took her probiotic immediately after eating. She drank a glass of red wine with dinner because her previous gastroenterologist had told her that polyphenols support gut health. And then she went to the couch, watched television for 90 minutes, and went to bed around 10. Every single one of those habits, the late dinner, the probiotic timing, the wine, the sedentary 90 minutes chew, was directly interfering with the one biological process that could have given her a quiet night. Margaret was not unusual. I would say she represents the modal pattern I see in IBS patients who have already done the work and are still suffering at night. The mechanism she was unknowingly fighting is the one I want to explain to you now. The migrating motor complex tau, or MMC tax, is a series of electrical impulses that sweeps through your small intestine in waves, roughly every 90 to 120 minutes during the fasting state. Its job is essentially janitorial. It clears residual bacteria, undigested particles, and debris from the small intestine down into the colon, so that bacterial overgrowth in the small bowel does not develop. Here is the critical word I just used: fasting state. The MMC only activates when you have not eaten for a minimum of 2 to 3 hours. The moment you eat even a small amount the MMC shuts down and your digestive system shifts into the fed state digestive mode, which is focused on breaking down and absorbing what you just consumed. This is normal. This is how human digestion was designed to work. The problem for IBS patients is what happens in the colon during those late evening hours when the MMC cannot run properly. In a healthy gut microbiome, the bacterial populations in the colon are in a kind of negotiated equilibrium. The commensal species, the ones that support tight junction integrity and produce short-chain fatty acids that calm the gut lining chem, hold the majority. The gas-producing, motility-disrupting species are present but outnumbered. In IBS, and specifically in IBS patients with nighttime cramping, research from the past 8 years has consistently identified 2 bacterial profiles that shift that equilibrium: an overgrowth of hydrogen sulfide-producing desulfovibrio species and a significant depletion of Faecalibacterium prausnitzii. Desulfovibrio bacteria thrive on sulfur-containing compounds. When they ferment those compounds, they produce hydrogen sulfide gas, which at low concentrations is a normal signaling molecule, but at elevated concentrations is directly viscerally sensitizing bond, meaning it makes the nerve endings in your colon more reactive to normal distension. Your gut is not more inflamed, but it is more sensitive, and it is receiving more gas than it should late at night when it was supposed to be quiet. Faecalibacterium prausnitzii, on the other hand, is one of the most potent anti-inflammatory commensals in the human gut. It produces butyrate, which is the primary fuel source for colonic epithelial cells and a key regulator of intestinal permeability. When F. prausnitzii populations are low, the colon loses a significant portion of its chemical buffer against visceral hypersensitivity. The intestinal lining becomes more reactive. The pain threshold drops. Here is where Margaret's evening habits map directly onto this mechanism. Her late dinner at 8 in the evening meant the MMC could not begin its sweeping cycle until after 11 at minimum, right in the window where her symptoms were worst. Her glass of red wine, despite containing polyphenols, also contains sulfur compounds from the fermentation process. For patients with elevated desulfovibrio, wine is not a polyphenol delivery vehicle. It is a hydrogen sulfide amplifier. Her probiotic taken immediately after a meal was being metabolized in the fed state digestive environment, meaning the strains that might have supported F. prausnitzii populations were not reaching the conditions where they could implant. And the 90 minutes of sedentary couch time meant no vagal activation fall. The churning she described was not mysterious. It was predictable. And it was addressable. Let me show you how this plays out across 3 different patient profiles. And what I want to show you now is why the same mechanism plays out differently, depending on your IBS subtype tome, because the fix is not identical for everyone. Pattern 1, the late night fermenter. David was 41, a software engineer, IBSD. He had eliminated gluten, dairy, and most legumes. Still woke up at 1 in the morning with cramping and urgency. When I mapped his evening, the issue was a single habit he had no idea was significant: a tablespoon of honey in a chamomile tea at 9:30. Honey is roughly 80% fructose and glucose, with trace sulfur compounds from the enzymatic conversion process. For a gut already running an elevated desulfovibrio profile, that tablespoon at 9:30 was the match that lit the fermentation fire 90 minutes later. Removing that one input one thing, not a dietary overhaul time, eliminated his 1 o'clock waking within 10 days. Pattern 2, the early dinner, late stress window. Priya was 38, an emergency room nurse. IBS-C. She ate dinner at 5:30, which should have created an ideal MMC window. But her work schedule meant she arrived home at 9 in the evening. Cortisol suppresses MMC activity directly. High cortisol, screen-stimulated evenings were resetting her nervous system into a sympathetic state that blocked the parasympathetic mode required for MMC cycling and for the F-Prausnitzy supporting butyrate synthesis that happens during restorative sleep. Her fix was not dietary. It was a structured 7-minute decompression protocol at 9:30 that shifted her nervous system state before sleep. Within 3 weeks, her nighttime constipation pain dropped by more than 60% by her own self-reported scale. Pattern 3, the probiotic mistimer. Robert was 6'2", retired, IBS-M. He had been taking a high-quality multi-strain probiotic for 2 years, with no measurable benefit. He was taking it at dinner, with food, with a glass of water. The problem, most lactobacillus and bifidobacterium strains, because the transit time and stomach acid level are different in the pre-meal fasting state. Robert shifted his probiotic to 30 minutes before dinner, added a second targeted F-Prausnitzy supporting intervention, and within 6 weeks, his sleep-disrupting symptoms had reduced enough that he stopped tracking them because they had stopped being a significant life interruption. 3 different mechanisms, 3 different primary interventions, all 3 resolved within the same structural framework, the 7-minute evening protocol. Here it is, 3 steps, each step under 3 minutes, done in sequence between 7 and 9 in the evening. The sequencing is not arbitrary. It mirrors the order in which the biological processes need to be primed. Step 1 Peto, the 2-minute gut-directed breathing reset. This is not meditation. This is not mindfulness in the general sense. This is a specific vagal activation technique that shifts your enteric nervous system from sympathetic tone into the parasympathetic state required for MMC activation. The protocol: sit upright, feet flat on the floor. Inhale for 4 counts through your nose. Hold for 2 counts. Exhale for 6 counts through pursed lips. The extended exhale is the mechanism BU. It directly stimulates the vagus nerve via changes in thoracic pressure. And vagal activation is one of the primary triggers for migrating motor complex initiation. Do this for 2 minutes. That is approximately 14 breath cycles at this pace. You do not need to sit in silence. You do not need to set an atmosphere. You just need to do the breath pattern. This step must come first because everything downstream the microbiome intervention and the motility support is more effective when your enteric nervous system is in parasympathetic tone. You cannot supplement your way out of a chronically sympathetic gut. Step 2 Quantum, the F-Prausnitzy support intervention. Faecalibacterium prausnitzi cannot currently be supplemented directly conto. It is an obligate anaerobe and does not survive standard probiotic manufacturing. But you can support its growth by providing the substrate it feeds on. F. prausnitzii preferentially ferments arabinoxylan, a type of prebiotic fiber found in highest concentration in oat bran and wheat bran. For IBS patients who tolerate oats, 1 to 2 teaspoons of raw oat bran dissolved in 4 ounces of water, consumed at least 2 hours after your last meal of the day, provides the preferred substrate to F. prausnitzii during the overnight fasting and MMC cycling window. If you are oat sensitive or following a strict low FODMAP protocol, partially hydrolyzed guar gum and sold under the commercial name Sunfiber Gum is the best studied low FODMAP prebiotic for IBS with a similar but less potent F-Prosty supporting profile. 1 teaspoon in water, same timing rule applies. This takes 2 minutes to prepare and consume. The timing tigov at minimum 2 hours after dinner is not optional. Consuming this with or immediately after food defeats the purpose. It needs to reach the colon in the fasting window. Step 3, the sulfur load audit. This is the step most people skip because it feels like homework rather than an intervention. It is the step that makes the largest measurable difference for patients with elevated disulfovibrio profiles. For 3 minutes, look at what you consumed in the 4 hours before your last meal. You are specifically looking for high sulfur inputs: red wine, beer, cruciferous vegetables in large quantities, eggs consumed after 5 in the evening, commercial deli meats, and dried fruits. You are not eliminating these foods. You are identifying your personal sulfur load pattern across the week. The goal is to flag evenings where your sulfur input was high PUTU, and on those specific evenings, add a 1/3 ounce of water with 1/4 teaspoon of food-grade baking soda after step 2. Bicarbonate shifts the colonic pH slightly alkaline, which directly inhibits disulfovibrio fermentation efficiency. This is not a cure. It is a targeted, evening-specific buffer.
3 minutes of audit. A measurable reduction in overnight hydrogen sulfide production. 7 minutes total. Done between 7 and 9 in the evening.
Every night for 28 days. Here is something almost no one talks about in IBS management. And I want you to have it because it is the variable that separates the patients who get full resolution from the ones who get partial improvement.
Sleep posture. Specifically, the left lateral decubitus position, Taigen, sleeping on your left side.
The descending colon, which is the section of the large intestine where most of the overnight motility and transit work happens, follows a path down the left side of the body. Sleeping on your left side uses gravity to assist the movement of colonic contents through the descending colon and into the sigmoid, which is the final holding segment before the rectum. Sleeping on your right side or on your back works against that gravitational gradient. Multiple studies over the past decade have documented significantly faster gastrointestinal transit in left-side sleepers. For IBS patients, the clinical implication is direct. Colonic contents spend less time fermenting in the descending colon overnight when you sleep on your left side. Less fermentation time means less gas accumulation. Less gas accumulation means less distension. Less distension means less overnight cramping. Put a pillow behind your back if you are a natural right-side sleeper. It does not need to be structural fratan, just enough to make rolling to the right slightly uncomfortable so you naturally return to the left. This works within 2 to 3 nights for most people. 7 minutes of protocol plus a pillow. That is the complete system. I have put together a free 1-page reference card, the Evening Microbiome Protocol Summary Town, that includes the 3-step sequence, the F. Prausnitzy substrate timing chart, and the sulfur load audit checklist formatted for your refrigerator. You can download it at the link in the description below. No email required. Print it, put it somewhere visible, and use it every evening for 28 days. That is what the evidence supports. That is what I have seen work. If you want to start the prebiotic step and you are looking for a reliable sun fiber product, I have linked the brand I most commonly recommend for my IBS patients in the description. Full disclosure, that is an affiliate link. If you purchase through it, the channel receives a small commission at no additional cost to you. I only link products I would recommend regardless. Here is what I want you to take away from this. Your nighttime IBS symptoms are not a mystery. They are a predictable output of a predictable mechanism, a combination of MMC disruption, disulfovibrio overgrowth, F. Prausnitzii depletion, and sympathetic nervous system tone that is running too high heading into sleep. Each of those variables is addressable, not with a prescription, with a sequence, with timing, with 7 minutes. The patients I described in this video, Margaret, David, Priya, Robert, Probe, all had the same experience when this clicked for them. It was not that the symptoms disappeared immediately, it was that for the first time they understood exactly why the symptoms were happening, which meant they knew exactly what to do about them. That shift from mystery to mechanism is where recovery begins. If this video gave you that shift, do me one favor, hit the like button. It tells me this is the level of specificity you want, and it helps more people with IBS find this content. And subscribe if you are not already, because my next video covers the gut-brain axis connection to morning anxiety in IBS patients' plan, which is the other half of the nighttime story and just as actionable as everything I covered today. Type the word protocol in the comments if you are committing to 28 days of this sequence. I read every reply, and your response tells me which topics to prioritize next. If you know someone with IBS who is losing sleep every night and has run out of things to try prime, send them this video, not a summary, the video, because the sequencing matters, and they need to hear the mechanism explained to understand why the sequence works. I will see you in the next one.